Good evening, everybody. This is Mark Beagle for Beach City Bocce. Today, we're very, very fortunate to have Deputy District Attorney Maria Ramirez, who at the present time is employed by the District Attorney's Office, but she's also running to be the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. Um, Welcome, Maria. I think we're going to have a really fun conversation, and we'll we'll dive right in if you're ready.
I'm ready. Thanks, Mark, for having me. I'm really excited to have this important conversation with you.
Okay. So, a lot of people, are always wondering, what platforms people stand on, especially for the fact that there are a lot of people now running for district attorney of LA County. So, this is your show. So, all you have to do is just relax and just go with it. So, I think what people really always want to know right from the get-go is, tell us who you are. Why did you want to become a DA?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles County, and my parents immigrated here from Mexico, along with my grandparents. And they were able, through hard work and dedication, to build up a business that is actually still in existence today. And where I grew up, it's the Boyle Heights area of Los Angeles County, part of East Los Angeles. And during my childhood there, even though we had a pretty good childhood, the neighborhood was really experiencing a lot of violence caused by gang crimes. And so I really was concerned about the effects that violence was having on our communities, and especially where I grew up. It's really made up of working families that immigrated here, mostly from Mexico, and it really concerned me that they did not live in a safe environment. And really, that's the reason that I wanted to join the district attorney's office, because I felt that that is where I could make the biggest difference by working with our victims and our communities, and making sure that we were prosecuting those responsible for the violence. And so that's what drew me to the district attorney's office. I've been there now more than 33 years. It's been a long career. And for the most part, up until about maybe 3 years ago, I really have been very passionate about, prioritizing public safety and our victims of crime and our variety of communities that we have in LA County. So that is really, what drives me and where I come from. And I decided to run for district attorney almost for the same reason that I decided to join the DA's office, and that is that I'm very concerned about the trajectory that we are headed in right now. And I don't think that our office is doing its primary mission of protecting the community from crime. And I see the problems that our current administration is causing in our communities. And so again, it's a responsibility that I feel to make sure that I do everything I can to make sure that our communities have a voice and that their safety is taken into consideration.
So, you said that you had nearly 33 years as a
Yes, long
district
time.
attorney. Yeah. I well,
Yeah,
I did 30,
I
so
did
you did.
30. Yes, I
Yeah,
think we did
I did.
about the same, but I'm still there, Mark.
Yeah, you're still there.
Yes.
Um, s- so within that 30 years, y- I mean, what position did you hold? I mean, that's a long I mean, that's somebody's career. Now you're doing a career and then some.
Yeah.
So what positions did you have within the district attorney's office?
So I started in the district attorney's office as a student law clerk while I was still in law school. And eventually in 1990, that is when I passed the bar and became a deputy district attorney. And for about half of my career, I spent prosecuting gang violence crimes, which is what drew me to the office. And so that was really my area of expertise. In addition, I spent a significant amount of time prosecuting major narcotic traffickers in our major narcotic division. I have the experience of a trial lawyer, really somebody that I felt very connected to our community through the work I was doing with the victims of those crimes. And eventually, though, I decided that I wanted to stay in the district attorney's office and work up to management. And so I became a supervisor, and then eventually under Steve Cooley, he appointed me as a head deputy district attorney, where I oversaw two of our divisions in our office, the auto insurance fraud division and also the cybercrime division. And so I did that for about 10 years, those two divisions. And under the District Attorney Jackie Lacey's administration, she appointed me as director of the Bureau of Specialized Prosecutions. And in that position, I was part of her executive management team. I oversaw 8 of our most complex divisions in the office, including major crimes, sex crimes, family violence, the hardcore gang division, crimes against peace officers, juvenile division, and a couple of other important divisions like that. And in that capacity, I supervised over 260 employees during that time. So I was really that's where I started really learning about what it takes to run an office as big as our office is. And I was actually in that position when DA Gascon was put into office in December of 2020.
So you've run the gamut of things that you've done at the district attorney's office. So I think the next question kind of like will just flow right into that, because
Mhm.
I really don't know any of the other candidates per se outside
Mhm.
of me speaking to you right now. So what is it that you have that stands out from the other candidates? Why should you be the district attorney?
Right. So I think that especially right now with all of the concerns that we're having for public safety and really the chaos that exists in our office, I really believe in the last 3 years we have been leadership-less. We have not had a strong leader in our office, and I think that we need somebody that can come in on day one and turn things around. And because of the supervision and management experience that I have had in the office, I really am the only candidate of all of the 12. I know it's a very crowded field, but of all of the 12, I really am the only candidate that has both prosecution experience as a trial lawyer and then also management experience running the district attorney's office. We're talking about, billions of dollars in budget, thousands of employees. So we have to be able to navigate the complexities of the office. And so that is something that I bring to the table that no other candidate does. Even the current DA, although he now has run the DA's office, if you want to call it that, he was never a trial attorney. He was never a prosecutor. So he does not have that knowledge of how our cases affect our victims, our communities, our criminal justice system. And so I think it's very critical to have somebody that can really get in there, understand the culture of our office, understand our community, and really know practically how to run that office. And I'm the only candidate that can do that.
Right, and it's kind of like one of those things where you've done pretty much everything in the office. So you know what it takes to be the trial attorney. You know what it takes to be a head deputy DA for a full office. You
Mhm.
know what the special groups have to do. You, Basically, you have a wide range and wide knowledge. It isn't something that something would come to you as be a surprise. Am I correct?
Correct. And I think and something that maybe the public doesn't know about is right now there is a lot of, I think, chaos and incompetence inside of the district attorney's office. And sometimes the public doesn't care about that, but I think it's very important for them to understand the failures of our office right now, because it directly affects our ability to do our job and keep the community safe. So in other words, you get on a ship, Mark, you want a captain who actually has navigated that ship, right? You don't want somebody to come in and not know how to turn on the ship. So I have that knowledge, and really I think it's more than titles. It's more than the supervision titles or the management titles. I think it has to do with the ability to lead a department that requires so much. And so that is, I think, the leadership, I think, is something that I really bring to the table.
And you still being in the office, and I've spoken to a number of DAs, um, and also a number of police officers that are still on the job. And there's something going on in that office. And could you explain what maybe some of the issues that were inside the office that is causing such, for lack of better terms, an Italian would say, causing this agita amongst amongst the workers?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts at the top. And when Mr. Gascon came into office, he had no intention really to work with the employees, the men and women in our office. He had an agenda that he wanted to come in and use the district attorney's office to put forth that agenda. And so what happens that people, I think, started feeling like he didn't have a respect for those of us who had been in the office for so long, that developed expertise in different areas. He didn't really want to hear that from, and he didn't want to hear an opinion about any of that. And so I think it demoralized our employees. It certainly demoralized me. I have been in the office for 33 years. I was actually willing to work with him to try to, implement or edit or fix some of his directives so that they complied with the law, complied with our ethical obligation. And I didn't get good feedback about it. It's almost like they didn't want to hear it and he didn't want to hear it. And so I think that demoralized our workforce. And, being ignored, and when you're working so hard as a public servant and you're really doing the best that you can to serve the public and protect our victims. And we really felt that Mr. Gaston did not have the same concern for victims that we have always committed to having. And so, that was very difficult. Right from the beginning, I don't know if you've heard, but anybody who spoke up, there was retaliatory action taken against that person. And that was almost from day one. And so what it created was this atmosphere of fear that if you speak up when you see that one of the directives is not working the way it was intended to, or they were having issues in court with it being legal or ethical, it was, you almost had to decide, am I going to speak up and risk losing my position, or am I going to just keep quiet? So that atmosphere of not being able to give opinions or exchange information, I think that had a very chilling effect. And so we started losing a significant amount of lawyers. They left our office, and we used to have 1,000 lawyers in our office, and I think from the last count, we're under 800. And that is really affecting our ability to cover our obligations to the individual courthouses throughout the county. And we can't hire fast enough. Really, people don't want to come and work for this district attorney's office anymore. We used to have thousands of applications. I believe the last round, they only got 100 applications. And so it really is affecting our ability. You can imagine everybody's workload, what that is, because you're doing the job of 3 people instead of just one. And we don't feel that we have the support from the leadership that we need. And all of that just taken together, it's like the perfect storm of things. And it breaks my heart because I have been there under 5 elected district attorneys for more than 30 years. And this is the lowest morale that we've ever seen. As a matter of fact, I ran into a DA today, and she was saying that she started a walking club at the office. She just said, that way to try to keep people's spirits up. And I thought that was, it was great, but at the same time, it was so sad that we're kind of having to look within ourselves to try to get encouraged about our job.
So, when you get elected as the district attorney,
Mhm.
what do you do to get to get people undemoralized, to
Mhm.
get them back and kind of enjoying their job again, making it a great office that it was? And I don't know the numbers, but are you still the largest DA's office in the country still,
Yes,
even with the
yes,
amount of
still.
people?
Yes, it's still the largest in the country. And I think the number one thing that has to happen for our office to get back to a positive place, first of all, we have to elect Mr. Gascon out. He has to be gone. That's number one. Number two, with electing someone like me that has really worked hard in our office. In other words, I think people respect me. I think that they will follow me, that they will help me move the office forward. So putting a person there that has the experience, number one, and the respect of its employees is critical. And the most important thing that Mr. Gascon has not done from day one is I plan to listen. I plan to engage with the men and women that work for the district attorney's office, and I plan to listen and find out what are the issues that we are experiencing since 3 years ago. How can engage them in finding solutions? We are part of a team. A leader is not a leader unless he or she has people following, and so that is going to be critical to being able to move forward because we have other challenges, which is how are we going to hire fast enough? How are we going to increase our budget to be able to do that and implement a reform that works? And so we have other challenges, and so we have to start with a positive workforce that is willing to follow its leader. And so that's what I intend to do is regain their respect.
See, and for the most part, most workers just want to feel like they're being heard,
Yes, yes.
especially when they do the work that a district attorney does in the courtrooms. They're kind of like in the front lines,
Mhm.
and they have some. A lot of times they have very good suggestions, but if it's falling on deaf ears, it it really kind of takes the wind out of people's sails. And that
Exactly.
I really enjoyed hearing that you're going to listen.
Mhm.
That is huge
Yeah.
for a leader to listen.
And that expands even further than within our office because the other people that were left out of any kind of conversations about policy in our office during Mr. Gascon's administration is law enforcement. Going around talking to the POAs and the leaders of the departments. One of the things that kept coming up is the fact that they were never consulted or advised after, before the directives were put out. And who was going to be affected more than our office and our victims in the community, but our law enforcement partners that actually have to go out and implement these new ways of doing things. And so that's going to be critical to open that line of communication and listening to that portion of the criminal justice system that has been ignored up to this point.
In it, the next question I have is kind of piggybacking on what you said is in regards to policies. Now, I retired in December of 2020, just as he came into office.
Good for
So,
you.
so I only saw, the Jackie Lacey, the Steve Cooley,
Mhm.
those administrations. All I've done is hear about what is going on from my friends that are still there.
Mhm.
And the question I have is, are there policies that have been put into place that have handcuffed you guys in regards to doing your jobs? And if there were policies put into place that have handcuffed you, could you kind of explain, a few of them and how you'll be able to kind of change that up?
Mhm. Sure, there's a couple of examples that come to mind right away. I mean, the most obvious one I think that even the public knows about are the prohibitions that the directives placed on us not to use certain enhancements. And when the very simple example of that is, for example, if a person commits a robbery, but then the person commits a robbery with a gun, you want to be able to allege that the person committed the robbery with a gun because those are the individuals that we are more concerned about. And we should have the ability to impose higher penalties on a person like that, as opposed to the person who commits a robbery without any weapons and uses maybe scare tactics or something like that. So these blanket policies that were put out that just prohibited us from imposing enhancements really affected our ability to impose the appropriate disposition or sentence on a person's behavior. And one of the things that you could tell that these policies were not very well thought out because one of the consequences of prohibiting all enhancements is that enhancements such as hate crime enhancements, for example, were initially one of the enhancements that we were not allowed to allege. Well, you can imagine that all of the communities, the diverse communities that we have in Los Angeles County were up in arms about that because, especially right now when the Asian communities, for example, were experiencing hate crimes. The Jewish community was experiencing hate crimes. And so our hands were tied with what we could do with those individuals, and we're dealing with very serious crimes here. So that was one of the examples. The other example was initially Mr. Gascon felt very strongly that we should not try any juveniles as adults. And even though some people, I've talked to people that say, they're children, we should keep them in the juvenile justice system, but things are not so simple because oftentimes we're dealing with juveniles that are 16, 17 years old, in many cases, 17-year-olds that were almost going to turn 18. And so, and these are individuals that are committing multiple murders, heinous murders, and the juvenile justice system is ill-equipped to deal with that individual within the short time that they have, which would be only about 6 years in the juvenile justice system. And so that is why there is this, the legislature has given us these laws when we're talking about enhancements, the ability to try some juveniles in very specific cases as adults. Because we recognize that sometimes the juvenile justice system will not be able to rehabilitate or punish within that very short period of time. So that's another thing that Mr. Gascon's policies hindered us in doing. And, these just in general, many of his policies were very blanket policies that did not allow us to evaluate each case on a case-by-case basis and apply the appropriate punishment. And I think that's a major failure of his administration.
So, with those two policies that are put in place, and I don't know the workings of the administration and of even a police department. But if you were to come in and do you just get rid of them and start again? Do you revamp them? How does that operate? You being the DA now, and these policies have been just wrong to be put forward. What do you do as the DA to make this wrong or right?
So I think that I personally, I think every candidate has their plan of what they would do, but I personally think that we have to rescind those policies that were implemented on December 7th, 2020, because I really feel, and that is not to say that I don't agree with some of the concepts that we were trying to put forth during that time. However, I think that there are so many problems with the way the policies were written. Many of the policies were written by individuals that are not prosecutors, that did not know or did not appreciate the effect of implementing these policies in court and on the streets, and did not give that much consideration. Many of the policies were written, I thought, were illegal. Many of the policies created a situation where our prosecutors felt that they had to engage in unethical conduct. And so I think so that we're able to move forward in a more fair fashion, more just fashion, I think that I would rescind the policies and pretty much, start from the ground up and build up the policy so that we ensure that the policy's main objective is to ensure that the public is safe. So we need to put policies in place that allow our prosecutors the discretion to evaluate each case on a case-by-case basis and apply the laws and the enhancements and the procedures that would be appropriate for that case. And so that is a very critical thing that needs to happen right away. And I would be ready to do that.
And so when I retired out of our gang detail. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Oh,
see,
do you have a?
I'm wearing my gang detail
Oh,
shirt
good.
right here.
So we
Uh,
have a similar experience.
yes. Question, because when I left, the last case I filed, we filed a gang enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
Are they still even there?
Well, they're the law. They still are on the books, but Mr. Gascon's policy prohibits us from filing the gang enhancement.
Really? See,
Yes.
I did not know
Yes.
that was one of the enhancements that he
Yes.
took away.
And
And
and many I've spoken to several gang officers out on the street, and they really feel, and I really listen to them because they're actually on the street enforcing the laws, and they really feel the inability to be able to apply that gang enhancement to the worst gang situation has hindered their ability to address the gang problems in their areas. And so yes, that's a blanket policy that was put in place, and he has kind of gone backwards on a few of his initial policies, but the gang enhancement is one that he has not.
and once again, these are violent crimes.
Yes, we're dealing
The-
with violent crimes.
And that's what it seems is a few of the things that have kind of, raised its ugly head over the last 3 years is the violent crimes. you
Yes.
know, and across the country, pretty much gun violence itself. And we're taking away, or you guys have been taking away these enhancements to help prosecute these people and do justice for the victims.
Mhm.
Um, I it it kind of boggles my mind how
Mhm.
we went from where we are to where we were to where we are right now. And I have a few buddies that are still working as detectives, and their big demoralization, and they know it's not you guys that are doing this. It's everything comes down from the top. But
Mhm.
they're saying they arrest these defendants, they go and they file the case, and the next thing you know, they're either OR'd or they plead to a minimum sentence. Now, is this another Gascon policy, or is this the law now? Because they're just watching these people. I mean, before they could even the ink could dry, these people are
Mhm.
walking out. What gives with that?
I think that is due to a number of factors. And I think the two biggest factors creating those situations, first of all, is Mr. Gascon's policies, where he really wanted us to release as many individuals uh, out of jail, and really didn't give us even before the new bail policy. So number two would be the new bail policy that has been implemented by the Superior Court. So I think it's just a perfect storm of these things that are happening. But aside from Mr. Gascon's policies that do not, first of all, let us prosecute many misdemeanors, for example, the policies prohibit us from objecting to an OR release in many cases, unless we're dealing with violent or serious crimes. But many of the crimes that the community is being affected by right now are the misdemeanors and the quality of life crimes, the theft crimes, the property crimes, burglaries, those kind of things. And as we've all heard, those are the kinds of crimes that are on the rise. And so it is those cases that I think we're failing the public on, because there are no consequences. There are no serious consequences for those crimes. And so people are being released or not even arrested on the new zero bail policy that the court has instituted. And in addition, before that was even instituted, Mr. Gascon also had similar policies where he wanted us to not object to OR in many of these cases. So I think it's just a combination of these factors that is causing all of this. Also, the fact that I think it is very clear even to criminals that Mr. Gascon is really creating this light touch for criminals, and they always talk about it. They talk about wanting the Gascon special, and so it's people are aware, and it creates uh, this environment of people knowing that there will not be serious consequences for certain crimes that they commit. And so that I think that is what's happening there, and that is really what's happening with the smash and grabs as well. You see hundreds and hundreds of individuals participating in this because, first of all, will they ever get caught? And then second of all, even if they got caught, it's for a theft. It might not even make it to the felony threshold. And so the risk is I think it's worth it for them to commit these crimes because they know that the possibility of them getting caught is low. And then even if they get caught, they're going to get a slap on the wrist.
Wow. See, and that's once again just it's not right.
Mhm.
Now, when you walk into the courtroom or one of your DAs, your trial attorneys who
Mhm.
walk into the courtroom, there must be also some restrictions on them in regards to how they operate inside that courtroom. Correct me if I'm wrong, but on like some resentencing hearings, it's as though that they're just kind of, for the lack of a better term, they're just like eye candy sitting there. They
Mhm.
have no argument whatsoever on that. Is that actually going on, or is that something that some of my buddies have just been telling me?
Well, the office is definitely getting an onslaught of resentencing petitions, and I'll give you an example of one that was brought to my attention. As a matter of fact, today, there's a defendant who received LWOP, so life without the possibility of parole, and obviously it was a murder. And they've filed a resentencing petition, and there's no legal basis for it. But why not, right?
Yeah.
Right? They feel that, hey, there's a good chance that somebody will give us a resentencing. Why not try? And my the lawyer was very much at a loss. Like, well, what do I do with this? Because there's no legal basis. And I said, well, all you can do is go in and object and say there's no legal basis. But this is causing our lawyers to have to spend a significant amount of time trying to litigate these motions that have no merit, right?
Right.
And they're taking up a lot of time to a workforce that is already being spread thin. Uh, there are some resentencing petitions I think that are valid that we should look at uh, again, and that there's some legal basis to do that. But definitely, I think the other thing that's happening, Mark, is that there are many resentencing petitions that are being handled by handpicked people within our office by Mr. Gascon that we don't even learn about. We've been restricted in being able to look the case up and look up information about the case. And this is happening with many of the death penalty cases where he has an individual that is just focused on relitigating that so that they could get a life without parole resentence instead of the death sentence. And these are all things that are happening not by our attorneys, but by handpicked individuals by Mr. Gascon. So there's a lot going on with the resentencing. There's obviously we have to follow the law, and the law gives us situations where people should be resentenced. And I really have had cases come before me where I feel they should be resentenced, but there certainly is a lot of going on where people are just submitting resentencing petitions, and there's no legal basis for it.
And I have something to ask because this is something I heard once again after I left.
Mhm.
And so when I was working homicide, I did a few officer involved shootings. And I was hearing through the grapevine because, us cops, we are the greatest gossips. So I don't know what's sometimes true or what isn't. Um, but I was hearing that Gascon was going to reopen officer involved shootings that have already been adjudicated and went through the whole thing and kind of reinvestigate them. And one of them for sure that I know of was one of mine that I investigated. And I was just wondering, was that a thing or is just that something that people are telling me?
No, there is actually truth to that. He did open, he went back to, and I honestly don't know how many cases, but he certainly went back to many of the cases that were under the Jackie Lacey administration. I was actually a part of many of the decisions that we made in some of those cases not to prosecute, and they were very well thought out. We reviewed the evidence, and we made a decision based on the evidence and the law. And he reopened, not only did he reopen all of these investigations, but he actually hired a person specifically to review some of these older cases that had already been made, already had decisions made. And, I don't know how he did this, but he paid this person, I think, $1 million or something to come in and review these cases, and, ended up refiling some that where we had decided that there was insufficient evidence to move forward. He filed the cases, and at least one or two occasions, a court ended up dismissing the case. So it's backfired on him a little bit. And the reason he's having trouble with all of that is because he's making these decisions for political reasons, right? He's not making the decision that we are obligated to do, which is to review the cases based on the evidence and the law, and not to be influenced by outside factors like politics or public sentiment. And so he's taken these cases and he knows the strong public sentiment of these cases. And so he knows that and if you, I don't know if you noticed, but he puts out press releases every time he files a case against a police officer.
Yes. Yes, I
But he
do.
doesn't do that for a person in the neighborhood that was killed, or by some a random person that's not a police officer. And he doesn't do it that much for them, but he does it for police officers. So he's trying to prove a point. And I think it's very politicized what he's done to those cases. We have an obligation to review these cases just like we do any other case, review the facts, the evidence, and apply the law and make a decision. And so I think that he's failing the public in that regard.
Yeah, because it really does. I mean, to me, it really kind of seems that he is taking the decision making process out of the people that are the decision makers, the
Mm-hmm.
trial attorneys, the DAs that work on these cases, and he's just blanketing across like, no, we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it appears that it's just slowly but surely it's just backfiring on him because I believe even people that thought that when he was coming in, he was gonna, he was gonna change stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and do magic, and
Mm-hmm.
it's backfired, and the pendulum is swung,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's to the point where you go to downtown, especially downtown Los Angeles. You drive through and it's the homeless, it's the people that are living on the streets. What is your platform on the homeless and the mental ill and an addiction? Because it seems that it's something that has just, besides gripping Los Angeles, it's gripped the nation right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The district attorney's office really in the past has not been, how should I say, very political or actively involved with the social issues that were happening. But I think that now, because of the crisis that we are experiencing and seeing, I think that the district attorney now has a bigger responsibility to play a role in finding solutions when mental health issues, drug addiction, homelessness, when that intersects with criminal justice. I think that we have a role to play to make sure that we are trying to find solutions for those situations. And I'll tell you, we have right now. I'm the head deputy of the Target Crimes Division, and within that division, I oversee a few smaller units: arson and explosives, stalking, child abduction, animal cruelty. And especially in the arson cases and in the stalking cases, we are dealing with defendants who are experiencing severe mental health issues. But they are also committing very violent crimes. And so we're finding that we're very limited in what we can do for them, because there is some mental health diversion that we have available, but those are usually reserved for or work better for individuals that commit crimes that are less serious, that are willing to participate in mental health diversion. But we don't really have other options for the more serious offenders. And, then the only option in those particular cases is state prison. And sometimes they're not addressing the mental health issue in state prison. Then they come back out and reoffend in the same manner. So I think we have a responsibility to be actively involved in advocating our legislature, our government leaders, to ensure that there is more secure housing for those more serious offenders in mental health cases. And I think really what would help our office and that those issues is that we have to create a direct pipeline from our attorneys in our office to the services that are available for us to use as part of a disposition or a sentencing. And that is something that, even though Mr. Gascon claims to be this reformer, he really has done nothing to try to find solutions for those kind of cases. we have a mental health division that pretty much that Jackie Lacey was one of the very first district attorneys in the nation to start a division that addressed mental health issues in the criminal justice system, and it's basically remained dormant. There's nothing really going on with that. So he really hasn't made any real changes that are going to change the system or the way that we do things. So first, we have to really give the knowledge to our DAs to know what exists to be able to address somebody, a criminal offender who has mental health issues. What is there? Is there a direct pipeline where somebody who's suffering from drug addiction? And you know the problems with drug addiction now is that we can no longer prosecute people
Yeah,
for possession. And so
right.
now the consequence, or that the criminal case hanging over their head, we can't use that anymore, and they're not going to get the help that they need. And so it's these it's like a vicious circle. And but I definitely feel that now the district attorney's job is much more complicated than it used to be, and we have to be involved in the discussions. We have to know what is out there. For example, when we fashion a disposition or sentencing with somebody who is homeless, after the disposition, do we just turn away and say, okay, well, the criminal case is done? Or do we ensure that the person, as part of his probation or part of his sentence, has to go and get services, has to go and get placed in a home or whatever the case may be? So I think we have an obligation to expand our reach.
Right. And it just like even in police work, when I
Yes.
first came on, you're a police officer. As years go by, you're taking on more roles. And
Yes.
we're in a very, very complicated society right now that it's just not one group of people, one office that takes care of everything. And it seems like now that the criminal justice system kind of bleeds over into the sociological end of a lot
Hmm.
of things.
Hmm.
And it's tough. And that was, that I know for a fact is probably one of the biggest things about Los Angeles itself, is that
Hmm.
the whole homeless thing, and
Hmm.
the people in the streets. And that was the reason for my question, because
Hmm.
I think most of the voters, the two top things is the violent crimes
Hmm.
and the homelessness, and
Hmm.
then and then of course the quality of life issues.
Hmm.
Um, there there's there's a lot that you are going to take on when you
Yes.
win. When you win,
Thank you.
I I tip my hat to you. um I like what you have to say. And what I've taken away from all of this is the one thing that you said. The one thing that you said is that you're going to listen to the people that work for you. That
Mhm.
is so immense, because in this day and age, no one wants to listen.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to do the talking, and they want to be right.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, you have pretty much. I mean, this is going to be recorded, so it's not
Mhm.
live right now. But you
Mhm.
but you will have a lot of people listening to this. This is your opportunity to reach out and talk to the people listening, and tell them why you,
Mhm. Yeah.
Maria Ramirez, is going to be the next district attorney of Los Angeles County.
Thank you, Mark. I really do appreciate this opportunity. And one of the things that I have, campaigning is very hard. I will tell you, I don't recommend running for office if you don't
I
have
won't.
to.
I won't.
So, but talking to people and the different groups of people is very critical. And um, you know, George Gascon has the backing of me, the Democratic Party. He has the backing of labor, or a significant amount of labor backing, and kind of these big groups within LA County. But what really matters is what the people feel and what the people want. And can't be sustained much longer. And I know that in talking to people out in the communities, people are fed up with feeling unsafe. They don't feel safe going to the market. They don't feel safe taking their children to school. They worry about their children at school. And these are all concerns that are very legitimate. And it's coming from, one of the factors is that they don't feel that our office is doing the job that we are designed to do, which is to prosecute crimes and keep the individual safe. And we have to really build a public safety base that people feel that they can trust us again. We have to earn the community's trust and making sure that we're going to keep them safe. And then once we can do that, then we can spend our efforts and our personnel in building on that public safety base and coming up with new ways of improving our criminal justice system. And to do that, you're going to need a strong leader. You're going to need somebody who has the experience that I do. And I would hope that your audience enjoyed listening to what I had to say, that they can see in me that not only do I have the experience, but I also have the heart and passion
Mhm.
for, I know our office, I know our community, I know what we need to move this office forward. And I really would appreciate the support and people spreading the word and, kind of following. We only have a little over a month until the March primary. And, I'm hoping that the people that are the voters of LA County will send a strong message to Mr. Gascon that we cannot do this any longer and that we need a better person in that position.
Maria, I appreciate it. Those are very strong words that you've used, and you've really kind of covered all the bases in regards to what has transpired in the last 3 years. Um, I wish you all the best. I wish you luck, and to everybody that's listening, if you do live in Los Angeles County, please go out and vote. It's our duty as Americans to go out and vote. And Maria, once again, thank you very much for coming on. Um, Good luck, and
Thank you for having me.
hopefully the next time I talk to you, it'll be Madam District Attorney.
And I will come back on and talk to you again in that
Oh, I
capacity.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.
Bye.